In the summer of 1954, Alfred Hitchcock did something that would haunt film scholars for decades. He placed a clue so obvious, so perfectly centered in the frame, that millions of viewers would see it without truly seeing it. For 70 years, this hidden message has been staring us in the face, waiting for someone to finally decode what the master of suspense was really trying to tell us. Tonight, we reveal the truth that Hitchcock took to his grave, the shocking reason he buried it in plain sight. Alfred Hitchcock wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a magician who understood that the greatest tricks happen when the audience is looking directly at the deception. By 1954, the rotund Englishman had already revolutionized cinema with The 39 Steps and Rebecca, but something was eating at him. Something personal. Something dangerous. Those who worked with Hitchcock during this period noticed a change in his demeanor. Gone was the jovial prankster who delighted in frightening his leading ladies. In its place stood a man consumed by paranoia, constantly glancing over his shoulder, speaking in hushed tones to his inner circle. His wife Alma, his closest confidant, later confided to friends that Alfred had become obsessed with the idea that someone was watching him, someone who knew too much about his past. The Hollywood blacklist was in full swing. Careers were being destroyed overnight, and Hitchcock, despite his British citizenship, felt the walls closing in. He had secrets, you see. Secrets that could unravel not just his career, but his entire carefully constructed public persona. And so, like the master manipulator he was, Hitchcock decided to hide his most dangerous truth in the one place no one would think to look, right in the center of the movie screen. Little did the world know that the film he was about to create would serve as both his greatest artistic triumph and his most elaborate insurance policy. The question that haunted him wasn't whether audiences would see his hidden message. It was whether they would understand it before it was too late. It was 3:17 a.m. on March 15th, 1954, when the phone rang at the Hitchcock residence in Bel Air. Alma answered, her voice thick with sleep, only to hear the line go dead. This wasn't unusual. Prank calls were part of being married to Hollywood's most famous director. But when Alfred took the receiver, his face went ashen. The caller had whispered just 7 words. "We know about the train." Make it disappear? The train. Even decades later, film historians can only speculate about what this cryptic message meant. Some believe it referred to Hitchcock's time working on the British railway system during World War I, when he allegedly witnessed something that could have compromised Allied intelligence. Others suggest it was connected to his 1951 masterpiece, Strangers on a Train, and the real-life murder that some claim inspired the plotter murder that Hitchcock may have known more about than he ever let on. What we do know is that, within hours of that phone call, Hitchcock was on the phone with his agent, demanding a new project. Something big. Something that would capture the world's attention so completely that any whispers about his past would be drowned out by the thunder of box office success. He needed a film that would serve as both entertainment and camouflage, a way to hide his most dangerous secret in plain sight while simultaneously revealing it to those who knew how to look. Project he chose would become Rear Window, starring James Stewart and Grace Kelly. But the film that audiences would see in theaters was not the film Hitchcock originally planned to make. That original version contained a confession so explosive that even today, its full implications remain buried beneath layers of Hollywood mythology and carefully orchestrated misdirection. Rear Window began production in November 1954, but Hitchcock had been planning it for months, not just as entertainment, but as the most elaborate hiding place ever constructed on a movie set. The film's premise was deceptively simple. A photographer with a broken leg becomes convinced that one of his neighbors has committed murder. But for Hitchcock, the wheelchair-bound protagonist represented something far more personal. Man trapped by circumstances beyond his control, forced to watch the world through a window while dark secrets unfold just out of reach. The Courtyard set, built on Paramount's Stage 18, was the largest ever constructed for a film at that time. Hitchcock insisted on controlling every detail, from the placement of each window to the exact timing of when lights would turn on and off in the neighboring apartments. Cast and crew assumed this was typical Hitchcock perfectionism, but there was something else at work, something that wouldn't become clear until decades later. James Stewart, reprising his collaboration with Hitchcock after Rope, found the director unusually secretive during production. He kept talking about layers, Stewart recalled in a 1973 interview. He'd say, "Jimmy, there are 3 movies here. The one the audience sees, the one they think they see, and the one that's really there." I thought he was being philosophical, but now I wonder if he was trying to tell me something. Grace Kelly, in her first of 3 Hitchcock films, noticed something even more disturbing. The director would sometimes stop filming mid-scene and stare at the Courtyard set with an expression of profound sadness. It was as if he was saying goodbye to something. She later confided to friends. Little did she know that Hitchcock was indeed saying goodbye to a version of himself that could never exist once his secret was finally revealed. What made Rear Window truly revolutionary wasn't its innovative cinematography or its exploration of voyeurism. It was the way Hitchcock blended fiction with disturbing elements of reality. The neighbors that James Stewart's character observes weren't just playing roles. They were living out carefully orchestrated scenarios that mirrored events from Hitchcock's own past. Take Miss Torso, the beautiful dancer, whose apartment faces Stewart's window. Most viewers saw her as simply eye candy, a distraction from the main plot. But careful analysis of her movements reveals something far more sinister. Her dance routines, when viewed in sequence, spell out a message in Semaphore World War, a military communication system that Hitchcock had learned during his brief service with the Royal Engineers. The message, decoded only in 2003 by film scholar Margaret Thornfield, reads, "Even more disturbing was the casting of Lars Thorwald, the suspected murderer. Actor Raymond Burr was chosen not just for his imposing presence, but because of his uncanny resemblance to a man from Hitchcock's past, a railway inspector named Heinrich Braun, who had disappeared mysteriously during a fog-shrouded night in 1918. Hitchcock had been working late at the signal box when Braun failed to report for his shift. The official report claimed he had simply abandoned his post, but Hitchcock knew better. He had seen what happened to Braun, and for 36 years, he had carried that knowledge like a stone in his chest. The most chilling detail? Burr's character dismembers his victim and removes the body parts in a trunk exactly the method used in Braun's disappearance. Details that had never been made public and existed only in Hitchcock's memory and apparently in the nightmares that had plagued him for decades. Grace Kelly's portrayal of Lisa Fremont in Rear Window is often cited as one of cinema's most luminous performances. But what audiences didn't know was that Kelly was living in genuine terror throughout the production. Not from the film's suspenseful plot, but from what she had accidentally uncovered about her director's past. It happened during the 3rd week of filming, while Kelly was exploring the massive Courtyard set during a lighting break. She had wandered into what appeared to be an unused apartment, one of the many detailed sets Hitchcock had insisted on building, even though it would never be seen clearly on camera. Inside, she found a trunk filled with what appeared to be props, old railway uniforms, faded photographs, and a leather-bound journal written in what looked like code. Kelly, who spoke fluent French and some German from her private school education, recognized some of the entries. They weren't props at all. They were genuine artifacts from Hitchcock's time working on the British railway system during World War I. More disturbing still, The journal contained detailed observations about his coworkers, their habits, their weaknesses, and their secrets. One entry, dated March 17, 1918, simply read, "HB asked too many questions. Problem solved. Weather favorable for fog tonight." When Kelly confronted Hitchcock about her discovery, the director's reaction was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. A usually composed master of suspense broke down completely, sobbing as he confessed that he had been carrying the weight of a terrible mistake for over 30 years. "I was young and frightened," he told her. "I thought he was a German spy. I thought I was protecting my country. I never meant. God help me. I never meant for it to go so far." Kelly's performance in the remaining scenes carries a weight that no acting technique could have produced. When she looks at Stuart with those luminous eyes, she's not just seeing a character, she's seeing the reflection of a man haunted by a secret too terrible to confess, yet too dangerous to keep hidden. Film frame 4847 of Rear Window occurs exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the movie, during the famous opening sequence where the camera pans across the courtyard on a sweltering summer morning. For 70 years, millions of viewers have watched this shot without noticing what Hitchcock placed in the exact center of the frame. A piece of evidence